Good morning everyone and happy Wednesday. We are now into October. My name is Blaise and
And I'm Les.
Zig.
Ziggy
Stardust.
Not that Zig.
We are at Busybird Publishing headquarters, and every week we check in with you live to talk about something to do with books. That's a surprise.
It is.
We have two books to spotlight today. This one is literally hot off the press. Well, it's cooled down a little bit, but this is the only copy we have so far. We need to get a couple more copies for our library deposit. But this is going to be launched this Friday night in Adelaide, so we can't go to that obviously.
Okay.
So Annie Dimitriadis has written a book called Soulful Living. We all have a soul that is leading us to our destiny. Most of us have a deep feeling that we were meant for more, but something seems to get in our way. Having spent 10 years as a relationships and addiction counsellor with organisations such as Relationships Australia, Annie Dimitriadis seamlessly combines her specialised training with her deep understanding of the soul, a result of her own experience with overcoming addiction. Throughout Soulful Living, Annie D, as she is professionally known, will take you on a journey to discover what the soul is, why we need soul in our life, and how it shows up. We are all unique, and our journeys and experiences are all very different. In Soulful Living, you will learn that the one thing we all have in common is that we need our soul to grow, evolve, and transcend. It's a very pretty cover.
It is.
And there's lots of stuff in there for people to, kind of find their purpose and their soul.
Okay.
It's good, doesn't it?
Yep.
So that's coming out it is out, but it's being officially launched on Friday. So another book that is very different, this has been out a little while, and actually it's not for sale in the usual channels because it's kind of the author is just selling it privately. So it is actually about
She should sell it.
She should sell it because we
keep getting queries about it.
Keep getting people calling us about it. So obviously there's people are wanting to read it. This is actually about the first flight from Tassie to, I think it's from Tassie to Melbourne, or was it the other way around? I'm pretty sure it was from Tassie to Melbourne. So it's called Bridging the Strait, a salute to the first man to fly across Bass Strait. Do you know where Bass Strait is?
Yes, between here and West Australia, isn't it?
No, it's between here and Tassie.
Oh wait, that's just desert between us.
So,
Adelaide. Oh, same thing. Sorry.
So Lieutenant Arthur Leonard Long was one of the lucky ones. He had survived the ordeals of World War I as a pilot in the AFC, Australian Flying Corps. Letters written by his kinsman, I can't pronounce this, A. Pelfreyman, who was flying with the Australian Flying Corps, give us glimpses of the reality of what combat was like. I won't read the whole blurb because it is long, but this is quite an important book in terms of aviation history, and so that a lot of aviation buffs are really wanting to get their hands on this book. But there's a lot of work that goes into a book like this because there's a lot of research in terms of all the historical detail, because you can be sure that the history buffs are going to point it out to you if you have the wrong details. So that is actually out now too, and Pirrie was actually on radio and in media in Hobart when she went down a month or so ago. So that is a very different book obviously to that. So they're our spotlights, so to speak. Now today we're going to talk about the anatomy of a book, Les. We might have touched on this before, but what is one of the first things, in terms of the actual publication of a book, what is something people need to think about in terms of registration?
I think most people don't know what they're meant to think about.
No.
Because they don't know what's meant to go inside a book other than the words.
Yep.
And possibly the pictures.
So what about the registration number on the back?
The barcode?
Yes. So when you publish a book, you need to register an ISBN, which stands for International Standard Book Number. To publish, do you actually need this number, Les?
No.
No. So there's no actual rules about publishing. There's not, but
Lots of rules.
if you want your book to be treated as a professional product.
Well, the problem is if you do a book without an ISBN, no one's going to be able to find it.
Yep.
You know, unless you have some really unique title.
Yeah.
But the bookseller's not going to be able to find it.
No.
No one will be able to track down where it lives, where it came from.
Same with the libraries.
Libraries won't, so nobody will. It's like a license plate for a car. So you can track down a car from the license plate, you can track down a book from the ISBN.
And what is attached to that ISBN is a lot of metadata online.
Yep.
So, people can either use the ISBN or the title or the author's name and find out lots of information, because when you register the ISBN, you're putting in information about the book.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing with the ISBNs are unique to each book. A title, titles are often reused.
Yep.
So,
And there's no copyright on titles.
Yeah. So if you go to Goodreads or some other catalogue and look up a certain title, you're probably going to come up with a few hits.
Yep.
So if you don't know anything other than the title, you're probably going to be doomed to not know which book.
Yep.
But the ISBN actually helps you identify which book is which.
A few librarians have told me stories where someone's come into the library and said, "Oh, can you get me one of those books, the one with the green cover?"
That happens all the time.
So yeah, you need to know as much about a book as possible. The other thing is all that metadata is really vital, because there are so many more books being published thanks to self-publishing, that as much information or metadata that you can get online, the better it is for the success of the book. Now, when you register an ISBN, you have to deposit one book to the National Library of Australia and one to the State Library of the state that you were in. So obviously anyone who publishes with us, it gets deposited with the State Library of Victoria. But if you're in Western Australia and you're publishing over there and you're the publisher, then you have to put it in the State Library of Western Australia.
And that way, if there's a nuclear war, your books will survive for the next generations.
Will they?
The National Library will store them somewhere where they won't be destroyed.
Really? I don't know if we can promise that.
I can't promise. It's a nuclear war. I don't think anyone's going to come call me up on it.
Now, can you pick up that book?
Which one?
Whichever one. Because when you register an ISBN, you can then get a barcode created that is specific to that ISBN. The lines are different depending on the number. Okay. You also don't have to have a barcode, but the more things that you do to make your book look professional, the better it's going to do. Now, some other things that people don't think about or know about. So many people write books and they put a foreword in it and they write it themselves.
Yes.
Now, what people
and what's wrong with that, Sam?
You can't write your own foreword.
No, you can.
You
just
can,
wrong.
but you shouldn't. It's meant to be from someone of note. It's sort of a bit like endorsing the book, I guess. And you want it to be someone, who has some, if it's connection to the book, obviously, but also who has some relevance in the industry that you're talking about.
Yep.
For instance, if you were to have, I don't know if this has a foreword.
It does. I wrote it.
No, it has author's notes. But if you were to write a foreword for this, it's obviously about history of flying and it's in a historical book. You wouldn't want someone who, is a vet to write a foreword.
Why, a war vet would be perfect if they were from the Air Force. Oh my God, so exclusionary.
An animal vet.
Oh, okay. What if he was a pilot?
If he was a pilot, yes. Or if there was someone from the war, or
Like the Red Baron.
The Red Baron.
Yep.
Is he still alive?
No.
I don't know anything about the Red Baron, sorry.
He flew.
So, forward, and forward, please, is spelt F-O-R-E-W-O-R-D.
Yeah.
Not forward as in running forward, which a lot of people spell it.
Books have afterwards too.
Afterwards,
so
yes. But
similar.
But you can write that, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I don't make the rules.
What else can you have in the book?
What else, Sam?
What about a preface?
What about a preface, Sam?
Tell us about a preface.
Yes, Sam. Tell us about a preface.
Actually?
Yes, I'm waiting to hear, Sam.
Is that where you put the information that's kind of important to, when you're reading through the book, or is that?
It's information you put in that prefaces the book.
Very good.
So it's kind of, well, you could also call that an introduction.
You can have both. I once edited a book which had like an introduction, a preface, and a foreword.
Okay.
And the author had written all three of them.
Okay. And what would you say that you need all three?
No, God, no.
So maybe a preface or an introduction.
I think generally in a book, if I was editing it, I'd be happy to stick a foreword in, stick it for a non-fiction book, and then I'd just jump straight into the book.
Yeah.
And then if there's
Then
any...
chapter 1 could be the intro.
I would never have an intro. I'd just jump straight into the book, and if there's anything you want to tell people about researching that, I'll just stick it all in the acknowledgements or afterwards.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah.
I think people fall in the trap of putting too much preliminary information in, whereas
really it's going to become apparent why you wrote the book, isn't it?
Oh look, see, someone picks up the book, hey, I'm into spirituality and improving my life. I don't need to be told that in the introduction and the preface. That's the reason I picked up the book.
Yeah.
That's why I bought it. So I don't think you need that many of those things.
What about in fiction, things like prologues?
I like prologues to be used well. I mean, you have forwards in all those Penguin classics because they get well-known authors to talk about whoever's book it is.
Yeah.
I generally skip them because it's like, I want to read the book for myself. I don't need you to tell me about it. One of the Lord of the Rings editions I own, they talked about that particular edition, which was interesting because that's gone through so many different reprints and stuff like that. And prologues, if they're really needed, better not put them in. A lot of fantasy does prologues. But often you find like an author writes a prologue and then they write their book, the prologue becomes superfluous and you can just chop it.
Yeah.
It's not containing anything that people need to know.
Yep. Now, when you think of the back cover of a book, what do you think is the important thing about this?
Blurb.
Yep. But like when you pick up a book, it's not a trick question. When you pick up a book, first thing that would be attractive to you or should attract you is the cover. And then you're going to read the back cover, and that will be the difference probably of you buying the book or borrowing it from the library.
Well, usually if you're in a bookstore or a library and you'll see something from across the distance which attracts you, then you'll walk over.
Yeah.
I mean, that happened to me the other day.
Did it?
Yeah, it turned out I was looking at a mirror. Anyway, then you go over and you pick up the book and you read the blurb, and that'll entice you usually to flick through it, and then you'll have a look at the book. Oh, I'm sorry, am I jumping the queue?
No. So let's talk about the blurb a little bit. What do you think is the most common thing people do wrong?
They try to cram in too much information.
Yeah, they try and tell you everything about the book.
Yep.
And really, you don't really want to go over a certain amount of words, do you? 200 or 300 words is probably.
Yep. I mean, look at that one. Look at Annie's one. It's pretty short. One's a little bit bigger, but understand that it's talking a little bit more about the history of the story. It also depends on the market because there's some books would have longer blurbs than others. In something like this, which would be classified self-help, spirituality, people who are going to that area in the bookstore or in the library, they already know what they're going to find, so you don't have to arm them with all this information.
Yeah.
Whereas with biographies and historicals, you probably want to give people a bit more information about what the topic is and what the story is.
I mean, some novels just will have, a few lines on the back. They might have a couple of puff pieces.
Yep.
What is a puff piece?
Puff is an endorsement by another author, which usually only is a sentence long or something, and it'll just be like, thoroughly entertaining, I couldn't put it down.
Must read.
Yeah.
So almost like a testimonial.
Yeah.
Yep.
In a sentence or two, yeah. I mean, I don't really know anyone who's actually been encouraged by those, but...
Well, I think, a lot of books might have on the front cover, say if it's a self-help book and it's got a thing by, who's a self-help guru, someone like...
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins, if it had something on the front, people who love Tony Robbins might think, well, I'm going to read it.
Yep.
So, anything that you can do to enhance the success.
Have you ever bought a book because of a puff?
No.
How about you, Sam?
I've respected books more because I've...
Yeah.
But you haven't bought them?
No.
But I would say that people could.
You stole them, didn't you?
And, if you're selling online ebooks, the same information should all be up there in the metadata. So the stuff that you have on the back of the book should be in your description for the ebook. If you've got any testimonials or reviews or puff pieces, whatever you want to call them, they should all be in there as well.
Yep.
Because as much stuff that you can get up there, the better.
Yep.
What else? you just also when you
Publisher.
publisher on the back.
And on the
That's
spine.
good. And well, this is tiny because it's going to be a little bit slim, but yep.
Yep.
I forgot what I was going to say. In
Why don't
terms
you
of the
interrupt
cover, pardon?
Sam interrupted you. I can't believe it.
When
Sam,
you
stop
when
it.
you think about your cover, think about if you're going to have an ebook version or if you're selling it online. Just think about what your cover is going to look like when it's a thumbnail, because that will make a difference to people
Yep.
looking at it online. Because this when it's this big, is it going to still be attractive? Because some people have very busy covers, and when it's tiny, you can't actually make out anything. You can't make out the titles or the image. So that's something to think about. What else do we need to tell people about inside the book? In terms of layout, we have talked about layout before, but I'm a big believer of white space. So
There's a really good example of white space.
yeah, so reading is actually a sensory experience. So this is why we love, people who love reading love the smell of books, the feel of books. You want nice papers. You want some white space around the words. You don't want them all crammed in.
Yeah.
You don't want really tiny
It's
text.
intimidating. I mean, this one's a really pretty layout. It's
Wonderful
really,
layout.
kudos to the designer. It's me.
Yeah.
But you just get that nice spacious feel, because
Yeah.
dense text is intimidating.
Yeah, because you actually need to have a bit of a rest when you're reading in terms of, looking at things. If you're bombarded with too much information, it's not as enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yep. That's all we were really going to cover today. Just some little things to think about when it comes to publishing your book and how to help it succeed even more. So what else is happening at Busybird?
Tell them, Sam.
Next week, not this, is it this Saturday, the 12th? Not
Saturday
this Saturday week.
12th.
On the 12th we have
12th.
book camp, 9 to 5. That's an all-day session where we're going to be helping people to plan out their book. We have our Bali retreat. We've got one spot left
Oh, cool.
for our Bali retreat.
You going, Sam?
So if anyone wants to come.
Sam says she's going to take it if someone doesn't ring up right now.
Okay. I wish I could take Oscar, although no, I won't say that. Okay. What else is
Quarantine.
happening? He would be quarantined.
2 weeks. You got open mic night.
Open night, mic night, and we will be announcing the winners of the different categories of the excellent manuscript
What a title.
competition.
And then October 17th, you have a fiction seminar at Society of
That's
Women
the
Writers.
19th at Library at the Dock.
17th.
Is it?
No, it'd be 9th. This is Saturday?
Yeah.
It'd be 19th.
It's
Can't
the
believe it's
19th of October. Yes.
And then, I don't know, around there is open mic night and... I don't
There's
know,
always something happening.
Yep.
Check out our website. So until
like us on Facebook.
like us on Facebook.
Although if you're watching us, you're already on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's sort of redundant.
Yeah.
But still like us
But,
anyway.
and share stuff that we do.
Chair
Just send
stuff.
us what.
Why would you chair stuff? Oh.
Share.
Don't call me
Okay.
Share. Sunny.
We're going to go now. Bye.
Right. Bye.